I believe this crack is now quite stable. It's an old piece of wood. It's not moved since it formed in the workshop, and it's been in the dry here for a couple of weeks. What I've done is I've kept a piece of the end of this plank, and the grain pattern here is the same as the grain pattern there. So I've chosen a piece of wood that is from the same part of the tree as the crack. I've then made a little splint, a wedge of wood, which is actually tapered in this direction, but also tapered down into the wood here. What I'm not going to do is try and wedge this open, so I have to just be able to get this in very lightly without really exerting any pressure. So I'm going to use ordinary woodworking glue, put a little bit on the wedge like this, and what I often try and do is get the wood glue into the crack itself. There's nothing like getting a bit in there to make sure it's right in. So I've got a very fine spatula here. I'm going to work the glue down. So you get quite a bit in there. And then let's make sure that's the right way up here. So that now goes in here, and I'm going to just tap it very lightly like that, and it's covering most of the crack except a tiny bit at the end. And similarly, I've made some wedges like this, and I'm going to put that in the side here, and again it's going to go in very lightly, tucked up to the next one. Just a little tap, seat it home. And then I'm going to fill in this bottom bit here as well and wait till those dry. So if all goes well, that's pretty much invisible repair. There's a repair just here. There's a slight little bit of a crack still there. That might fill with wax, or if I didn't like it, I'd put another little bit of sliver of wood in. This is a knot here in case you can't see that. This is a dark wood. Whatever I do to it is going to be quite dark. But what I think might be best is to try and darken it even further. And I'm going to use a linseed oil with 10% turpentine mix here, and put it on these rocks at the front, the beach, around all the beach area where the sand is, and then this part in the background here, the sand and the cliffs at the back, and even in this little island here. I hope that that goes a little bit darker than the other. Let's see what happens. So, putting my mix on here, because oil generally, as a rule, makes wood darker and more grainier than wax or any other sort of finish. There's something about the oil picks up the fibres in the wood. So here's quite carefully up to here, but then the beach comes up to this line, this crust line here, and then along here. So very carefully just let that oil go in, and it'll come up to here. Well, so we'll let the oil soak in and then take off excess with a rag. So all this now, we can put oil in. The sides and the back I'm going to varnish with an acrylic varnish to seal, so the back does need sealing as well. So let that in there, that will soak into all that end grain. And then I'm going to come along here just up to the boat and along this edge here where you've made the edge of the sea. And along here up to the edge at the top here. And as I get to the bit up here where it's smaller, I'm going to swap to a smaller brush and just paint it as if I'm just painting. This is my beeswax mix, quite thin. Rub it on there, you can see it's slightly lighter. So I'm going to beeswax all over here, usual sort of way, by rubbing it in with the brush and then adding the hairdryer to melt the wax. So I take off excess wax with the rag, melted like so. You can see that the colour is lighter, but really you won't see the difference between oiling and waxing until several weeks, if not months, because these things take a while to react with the wood. So it's worth a shot, see how it goes. And we keep working that, and then when it's all dry we can just burnish this wax really nicely, and the oil too. So there's my finished carving. Not quite sure what's going to happen with these colours. I'm fairly optimistic that we'll benefit from adding the oil and the wax separately. I'm going to make a frame here. I'm pretty sure I'm going to do that because of this warping that went on here. And as I turn that, it's interesting, you can see how the perspective changes. And there's the viewpoint. And if your wood hasn't warped and you don't need to make a frame, then the carving's finished.